I was just having an ordinary Sunday afternoon with a couple of friends of mine when some gentlemen in suits came up to me and almost from a film, are you Cerie Bullivant? And I said yes, and they said, we're giving you a control order, and they handed me a piece of paper, took me to a police station and explained that although I wasn't under arrest and although that I wasn't being charged with anything, that I would have to abide by this list of conditions now. There was no evidence given to me at that stage. All I was told was that I was accused of being a threat to our troops abroad, which is absolutely ridiculous. But this was the accusation, and I had a list of conditions that from now on I had to abide by or spend up to 5 years in prison.
You must have said to them, well, why? What have I done? What are your allegations? What was the response to that?
Well, the police said that they weren't even aware of that it wasn't their job to know what I had done or what the evidence was against me, that they were just obliged to make sure that I carried out the order and to implement it upon me and make sure that I didn't breach it, that other people knew the evidence.
So what did it mean for your day-to-day life? You could still live in your own home, but what happened apart from that? Actually,
I couldn't live in my own home. My mother suffers from a severe mental illness, and at that time I was living with her as her primary carer. Obviously, the stress of a control order I felt would be too much for her to handle. So for the first 9 months of being on a control order, I didn't tell her that. But that meant that I had to move away from living with her and being a living carer for her, and find somewhere else to live. So firstly, it tore apart my family in that very real sense initially. And then I had my normal conditions of signing on at the police station every day, no travel, allowing the police to search the property at any time, all of these sort of base conditions. In the initial case, my conditions were some of the more relaxed ones, but even at that level, they still control everything. So
you had to go to a police station every day, and were you allowed internet access or phone access?
At the early stages, well, I always was. Again, my control order in the early stages was very, very light, but it became gradually more and more strict. Every few months they would add on more conditions and more conditions. So.
And throughout this time, you were told simply that this was because you were deemed a threat to our troops abroad. Is that the only thing you were told?
The only time we got more information was in the last 4 months of the control order, coming up to the High Court case, where they released a few dribs and drabs of information, none of which explained anything as to why they were accusing me of this, but it was just some spurious parts along the edges of their case that they didn't mind us knowing. So.
And your suspicion is because it was because of people you were friends with, people in your family? What were you thinking about all of this over that period of time?
Well, this is one of the most crippling things about the control orders. They're indefinite and you don't know why you're on them. So you start analysing every part of your life to think, could anything be misconstrued? We eventually found out that one of the major things that they relied upon was a call to the terrorism hotline that someone had made about me, putting my name in, and that was one of their major things. We worked out who that person was and realised that that person hadn't seen me for 1.5 years after my conversion, and that they were purely worried in the fact that why would a young white man become a Muslim? He must be being radicalised. And they'd made that call while they were drunk, and they admitted that to my mother, that they'd got into a drunken state and got over paranoid and made the call. When it came to court, we asked the MI5 agent about this. He admitted that they'd done no checks on the person, that they hadn't followed it up and spoken to the person as to why they'd put what their basis for their accusation was. It was just taken as verbatim because a call was made. And this is the trouble with the system. When we found out about it, we could easily refute it. But before that, we didn't know about it, so it was impossible to know what to refute.
And how did you then reach a position where eventually, clearly the control order wasn't relaxed, it was ended, you are no longer under one?
Well, I was very lucky. I went to the High Court. We had a hearing in front of one of the judges there. Unfortunately, myself and my legal team were not allowed to be there for large portions of it because of the secret evidence. So the judge was having one-on-one time with the prosecution, but having assessed everything and all of the information, he said that there were no reasonable grounds to suspect that I was involved in terrorism.